I would like to welcome you all. I would like to thank the different panelists in this session. Would like to open the floor for questions without further ado. First, I do kindly ask you to be concise and ask direct questions. So we do not want to have any analysis or comments. So please ask direct questions to the different lecturers. I do take some of the questions, and please give us direct answers. If not, we can communicate through email or any other means of communication. So we'd like to start. نحتاج
سليمان.
Yeah, it's there. Okay. من يريد الكلام أيضا؟ من يريد
Who wants to take the floor? My question is to Dr. Mohammed Yusri first, and then Dr. Hussam. My question to Dr. Mohammed Yusri, maybe it is better to speak in English.
Characterization. أو نعم انتظر قليلا إن شاء الله. طيب بالعربية يعني وصف الغرب بأنه.
So describing the West or the global system or the Western system in the way that you have done, I do find it تقليصي. It is reductive. So there are so many currents and trends in the West, as we see in the United States of America. We say the left group headed by Alexander Cortez, and we see members of the Senate أشخاص مثل Bernie Sanders and so on and so forth. These people, they want to change the Western system. You mentioned Fukuyama and Bernard Lewis, and also you mentioned somebody else, and this is in the margin of the discussions, Noam Chomsky. Noam Chomsky doesn't a great deal of impact or influence, but Bernie Sanders, he is at the heart of the discussions, political discourse that is taking place in the US. And we hope that he is going to be able to beat Trump in the coming elections. So we have to think how we can form how can we build useful and productive relationships despite the differences. Maybe they talk about the freedom of homosexuals. For Muslims, this is a problem. Jonathan Brown wrote about this. So Muslims, how can they deal with such a matter, knowing that homosexuality is not accepted in our vision, in our religion? So this is something that is very important in such a phase. How can we tackle such a matter? So Dr. Hussam, you mentioned the corporate social responsibility.
But you also mentioned the idea الذي فهمت من الذي ذكرت that multinational corporations also can sort of serve positive, they are very often characterized in negative terms, but they also have positive things to offer. And what we need to do, the postal sort of model you brought from the, I think that's a fairly common corporate model. My concern about the suggestion that multinational corporations are actually a good model and have much to offer, and corporate social responsibility is something that is positive, is that this is a major debate within corporate social responsibility. At the end of the day, the corporation is predicated upon shareholder primacy. shareholder. The shareholder is the, and this goes back to 1919, the famous sort of Dodge versus Ford Corporation, Ford Motor Corporation, where the judge upheld.
Sorry, brother.
Yes.
Doctor,
Okay.
I'm
So,
sorry. It's 3 minutes. You are taking 3 minutes too
okay,
much.
سامحني.
I'm sorry to
Okay,
stop
so that's
you.
fine. I'll conclude
Yes,
that.
I
So
think the message has been already conveyed
Thank
to
you very
the
much.
speakers. Thank you. The brother, Dr. Juwaida here.
شكرا سيدي رئيس الجلسة.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I would like to start with my question to Mr. Ismat Mahmoud. I would like to thank you for your lecture, but I would like to pose a question about poverty. The lecture did not talk about the strategy that should be followed of how to get rid of poverty, although in the whole Islamic world we have zakat and all Islamic countries have called for the establishment of zakat funds, but still the Islamic world witnesses very high levels of poverty. So I'd like to have your opinion with regard to such a matter. Mr. Ghudban, talking about multinational companies, this is a very large kind of topic, particularly in recent years, and having a number of initiatives by Al-Hawkama and so on and so forth. So how can we deal with such matter? And is social justice, does it entail that we should get rid of this production that can lead maybe into a new imperial productive consumption, or so social justice is the crux of the matter. So this entails that we should divide and put an end to the compradors, those who protect these multinational companies.
لك. نعم شكرا.
سؤالي للأستاذنا الدكتور عبد المجيد النجار.
My question is to Dr. Abdul Majid An-Najjar. Why haven't the precepts of Islam been reflected on the day-to-day behavior of Muslims and what is being said by Muslims and what is being practiced by Muslims on a day-to-day basis? Assalamu alaikum. Thank you. I have a question to Dr. Hussam and Dr. Ismat. God Almighty says that we have given him the choice. So when we have these options, and when we try to weigh up the options, we reach certain kind of crisis or conflict. So this kind of conflict is controlled by certain kind of institutions. They use certain social dimensions in order to promote their discourse. So what is the solution in this sense? I think that should be enough. I do apologize a lot because we still have 10 minutes and we have to finish within 10 minutes. I do apologize. I would like to give the floor to the panelists for them to be able to answer your questions, and after that we're going to end this session. And if there are any further questions, we can communicate through other means of communication. Thank you. Would like to start with Dr. Al-Najjar. Shukran. Why wouldn't the Islamic precepts be reflected in the behavior of Muslims due to a problem when it comes to the concepts that these people have? Yes, the Quranic verses call for the building of planet Earth. It calls upon that we should live and use this land adequately. So this concept has become something marginal. It is no longer one of the main precepts and usul, the fundamentals of religion. So that is why Muslims do not use the religious incentive whereby he or she should take care of the environment as he is using this kind of dimension when he or she goes to the mosque for prayer and so on and so forth. There should be a creedal kind of reform for such a matter. So, living on planet Earth, so using the goods of this earth and living as per the precepts of religion should be a fundamental matter and not a marginal matter. But there are some other concepts that are a part of the fundamentals of religion. So that is why we do not see this reflected in the behavior, such as social justice that we have been talking about. So our brother would like to thank him for alluding to this very important thing, which is corporate social responsibility. So, but what is the responsibility of the community itself when it comes to the achievement of social justice before you go to companies to carry out their role? So this vicegerent's role, we read in the Holy Quran and the prophetic tradition that it is necessary to have this solidarity. This is one of the usul, the fundamentals of iman, of faith. So, and there are so many other things that should be taken into account. So this social responsibility has been neglected by the community, has not been carried out as it should be by human beings, by the community. We have to have this solidarity. And this is something that is very important indeed, something that the money that individuals have and that are owned by individuals, part of it is to do with the group. So we all have some rights when it comes to the money that you have in your in your pocket. So your property is not an absolute property. So the funds belong to God as per the Holy Quran. So each member would have some part of the funds you owed. So the Quran talks about amwalakum, your funds, the funds of the community, things that are owned by the people. So these are the funds and the property of God in the hands in the community, individuals in the community. So here we talk about the societal dimension. So we have to raise awareness when it comes to the community, for that community to carry out the role it is supposed to carry out in order to achieve social justice. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Najjar. Dr. Ismat, can you kindly answer the question, please? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much. Your question was about poverty, and I tried to summarize what I wrote. And I'm going to summarize once again that the philosophy of the Quran when it comes to poverty, there are a number of religious and Quranic chapters as not only a social phenomenon and not only when we talk about the material dimension, which is deprivation of resources, but when we look deeply into the Quran, we will see that poverty is an ethical and moral phenomenon due to the evil inside us that leads to the deprivation of others from funds. But the internal and external manifestation is due to the greed of people and the harm that is inflicted as a result of that. The Holy Quran tries to tackle this matter. It is not to combat or to fight rich people. It is to combat poverty and not rich people, but also to try to instill feelings of solidarity, because poverty should be an exceptional phenomenon within human societies and communities. And this thing was underlined in my paper, particularly the idea that was underlined by Ali Izzat Begovic. He talked at great length about this matter. When it comes to the idea of conflict, it is not a religious idea. Religions do not talk about neither Islam nor Christianity nor Judaism in their essence. So this is a philosophical kind of idea. And when we talk about giving him or her the possibility to choose, giving the possibility to the human being, to the Muslim, to choose the pathway that he or she wants to choose. So that is why we're talking about what the human soul knows, and goodness and doing good acts and good deeds is not something that should be planned for. It is evil that needs to be planned, because doing good deeds and carrying out good acts is not something that needs to be planned, because it is something that is innate in us. So God has created us, has given us everything, and then has given us the choice to choose which pathway that we would like to choose. So the guidance of God has importance in the Tin was Zaytun. We have created the human being in the best form and way. So there is no conflict in the Islamic vision. People have been created with their natural disposition, but the other ideas of conflict is a matter that has emanated from Western philosophy. Dr. Hussam al-Din, thank you so much. I would like to thank the different members of the audience who have posed questions. So the first question has provoked me positively. You have talked about a number of practices, positive practices of multinational companies. So these practices, in order to try to cover the sun with your own hand. So these multinational companies or national companies have become companies that do use the same practices as multinational companies. So social corporate responsibility should lead to the affluence and well-being of the community. I do not want to mention companies in particular, but companies should respect the culture of countries, but they do take advantage of the resources of those countries, such as shale gas. There are some positive behaviors. The advertisement by Gillette has led to chaos, because they have shown men as men harassing others, and this was rejected and criticized, and so many people have called for boycotting Gillette as a company. So these companies should play a stronger role and a much active and positive role. And even when it comes to voting, so blue gives you, it's a color that symbolizes security. So in Facebook, Twitter, and so on and so forth, the content is secured by having this blue dot or blue color. But is it really? There is also a conflict between the different stakeholders, whether these are shareholders or customers, and so on and so forth. So this conflict is the one that leads to the fact that each party wants to control the other party, as it is happening in the different TV channels. The TV channels, they are in a conflict between the funders and between what is happening on the ground and the topics that are being discussed. So this is going to be time-consuming. The third question, very briefly, please. I would like to comment on what Dr. Al-Najjar had said, who talked about the role of the community. Yes, he is right in what he said. He is truthful that we have to start with individuals and communities. But I would like to tell you that even the organizations have a role to play when it comes to individuals in the community. We have a number of companies such as McDonald's and Disney and so on and so forth. They have their own universities where they train individuals on a certain particular culture, to the extent where they say that 90% of the culture of the United States of America is a culture of the McDonald's company. We can look at it from this angle. Thank you so much, Dr. Hussam. Our Sheikh, Dr. Yusri, if you can please comment. I do agree with the person who posed the question, and I would like to add to Jonathan Brown, Karen Armstrong, and Michael Seals, and Susan Douglas, and even Prince Charles. He is amongst the very moderate personalities with positive discourse. They are not all the same. We do not generalize. And I would like to add, as the professor has said, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, that has given us a very bright image of how leaders deal with such kind of crises. Everybody is commanding her position and also the position of the New Zealand people. And we think that this image that we have now is New Zealand is a very positive image, and we have to shine light on this voice. That voice should supersede the voice of anger and violence in both West and East. Yes, we have our extremism. We have extremism and terrorism. We have to combat it. We have to be able to put an end to it. And we are not responsible. We know that there are incidents that have happened, such as Charlie Hebdo, and this was condemned by all Muslim scholars in all international gatherings, and they saw that those who have committed that are outside the precepts of Islam. They are known as Khawarij. These are they consider those as Khawarij. So I hope that this clarification is well received. The image of Muslims in the West in the curricula in the 70s and 80s was very bleak. This image has been amended a great deal within universities and in the different curricula of secondary schools, when the door was open for companies to compete when it comes to the curricula of the Middle East with the Arab culture and so on and so forth. And we have seen the participation of so many companies, and their books have been taught, such as Susan Douglas, who has a series of books that are being taught in the West that are these books are very just and very important. We have to commend these initiatives that exist in the West, and we have to work on communicating with these kind of people. Thank you so much. So we would like to end this blessed session. I feel a little bit embarrassed, because I was not able to give the floor to Mrs. Anga and Mr. Azmi. I do apologize for having stopped you. I hope that you have benefited from this discussion and from these papers. and valuable interventions. Would like to thank you for your patience and would like also to thank our guests, Dr. Abdelmajid Al-Najjar, Sheikh Mohammed Yusri, Dr. Ismat Ismail, and Dr. Ghadban. I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Rawan, my colleague. Thank you, Dr. Fethi. At the end, we'd like to extend my thanks and would like to thank you for supporting this conference by being with us or enriching the discussions that have taken place, and we hope that we're going to be able to communicate in the coming days. So success is through you, and this success is going to grow each and every day. Thank you so much.